Hey everybody, my name is Catherine Resnichek and I will be taking you through Research Methods by Carrie Williams. Let's set the stage for learning about qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods research. We generally accept sensory knowledge as truth, and it provides a level of evidence that can withstand challenge. We classify sensory knowledge that's accepted as truth as empirical or a posteriori knowledge. A priori knowledge or non-empirical is knowledge that's independent of the sensory experience. All this is important because a posteriori knowledge and a priori knowledge forms the foundation for the qualitative and quantitative research methods. Now let's take a look at the research. It's important to understand what we mean by research. Research is a process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data in order to understand a phenomenon. It's systematic within an established framework or guidelines. There are three common approaches to conducting research. Quantitative uses numerical data, qualitative uses textual data, and mixed methods use both. Let's start with quantitative. We'll look at the research approach, the research methodology, and the research method. Quantitative research follows the empiricist paradigm, where the research is seen to be independent of the researcher, seeks explanation and predictions that can be generalized, and follows the form of problem statement, hypothesis, literature review, and quantitative data analysis. There are three general classifications for quantitative research: descriptive, experimental, and causal comparative, and we'll look at all three. Descriptive methodology examines the situation in its current state, seeks to identify characteristics and attributes based on that observation, and explores correlations. Experimental methodology investigates the treatment or intervention on a group and measures outcomes. There are three exploratory approaches to experimental research. Pre-experimental, where you have a non-varying independent variable or non-random control group. True experimental, which gives you a high degree of control and validity. And quasi-experimental with non-random selection of study participants. Let's recap. So we looked at descriptive, we looked at experimental, and now we're going to move on to causal comparative. Causal comparative looks at how independent variables are affected by dependent variables. And it also looks at the interaction between independent variables and the influence on dependent variables. Several methods exist to conduct quantitative research. In descriptive research method, correlational, developmental design, observational studies, and survey research are used. These research methods may also be used to various degrees within experimental and causal comparative. In the correlational research methods, we're looking at the differences in characteristics within our study group, and we're calculating coefficients of correlation. We're looking for patterns, and we're looking to see if any of those characteristics are related. In developmental design, we're looking at how characteristics change over time. There's two forms. One is cross-sectional, where we compare two different groups on the same parameters, and one is longitudinal, when we look at the same group over a longer period of time. In an observational study, we objectively observe aspects of human behavior and record that data. In survey research, we capture phenomenon at the moment and we sample representative populations. Now let's move on to qualitative research, which is a holistic approach involving discovery. And we look at social phenomena that being investigated from the participant's point of view. Qualitative research is conducted within a post-structuralist paradigm, which is deconstruction, or looking at meaning, power, and language. It also uses inductive reasoning with observation, questions, and explanations. Empirical evidence is data collected from our senses, and in qualitative research, it's used to explain phenomena and is relevant to social behavior. There are 5 prominent methods within qualitative research: case study, ethnographic study, grounded theory, phenomenological study, and content analysis. And we'll go through each one. Case study is an in-depth exploration of a program, an event, an activity, a process, or one or more individuals, and it's always within a defined time frame. The structure of a case study involves the problem, the context, the issues, and lessons learned or patterns found. Data collection is extensive from multiple sources. In an ethnographic study, we study a group with a shared common culture in their natural setting, and it's over a prolonged period of time, and primarily observational data is collected. In an ethnographic study, the researcher is immersed in the daily lives of the group. They must gain access, establish rapport, and build trust, and then hang out with everybody to find out who the key informants are. And finally, the structure of an ethnographic study includes the justification for the study, a description of the group and the method of study, evidence to support the claims, and findings. Data collection is primarily through observation and interviews with the key informants. Grounded theory is an inductive method involving the construction of theory through data analysis. The data comes first versus a theoretical framework. Grounded theory uses the constant comparative method, where the researcher is constantly moving in and out of the analysis and the data collection phase. Data comes from several sources, such as interviews, reviewing historical records, observations, things like that. The structure of a grounded theory report includes describing the research question, the lit review, descriptive methodology, data analysis, explanation of the theory, and discussing implications. Data analysis is done through open coding, axial coding, and selective coding. In a phenomenological study, we're looking at understanding experiences from the participant's point of view. We're searching for underlying meaning of the experience, and experience has both an outward appearance and an inward consciousness. In a phenomenological study, the researcher usually has experience with or a connection to the study topic. Therefore, they need to engage in bracketing, setting aside prejudice or preconceived ideas. The structure of a phenomenological research study involves writing the research question, doing interviews, analyzing data for clusters of meaning, and furthering our understanding of the structure of experience. Data collection involves lengthy interviews, usually from 1 to 2 hours. Content analysis is a detailed, systematic examination of the contents of materials of human communication, things like books, newspapers, films, magazines, etc. The purpose of content analysis is to identify characteristics that reveal patterns, themes, and biases, and we use verbal, visual, and behavioral forms of human communication to do this. The structure of a content analysis involves description of the materials, the characteristics and the quality studied, a description of the methodology, and a statistical analysis with a frequency table, and conclusions about patterns, themes, and biases found. Mixed methods research blends or incorporates methods of collecting and analyzing data from both quantitative and qualitative research. Mixed methods can be seen as an extension of, and not a replacement for, qualitative and quantitative research. It draws from the strengths of each and minimizes the weaknesses. It involves both deductive and inductive reasoning. So, quantitative research is the objective measure of reality. Qualitative research is the exploration and understanding of complex phenomena. Mixed is the best of both of those worlds, but which one you choose and which one you use will always depend on the research question. Thanks for joining me in exploring research methods. The materials used to support this video came from Carrie Williams' Research Methods.